Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Trey, and let's talk about Our Man in the Sentry. Because funny thing about that, as you know, the Sentry has made his debut in Thunderbolts, right? And already people are trying to say that he's better than Superman. No, actually, he's not. He got defeated by the Thunderbolts. Like, if you guys read the comic books, you would know that if you really wanted to try that whole Sentry pool, Sentry needed a little bit way more powerful characters than whatever the Thunderbolts were to even take him down. It took the Fantastic Four, X-Men, New Avengers, Spider-Man, Heroes for Hire, the Inhumans, and that y'all got like the Z-list, no, the Z-list squad to go against him. Like, stop it. That's why it's the same thing as like why James Gunn's Suicide Squad was terrible. Like, you really think I'm supposed to believe that the Suicide Squad is supposed to be able to take on one of Justice League's first adversaries, which was Starro? Like, be so for real. But anyway, that's neither here nor there about the Thunderbolts. Anyway, the reason why I want to bring this up is because the creator of the Sentry, also said that it was a pitch for the reboot of a JSA character, and the JSA character is Our Man. Now, a lot of y'all probably like, who's Our Man? So, Our Man is a JSA member. I'm sorry, he's the JSA member, and his powers work on, basically, he has this formula that he takes. I think it's called Miracle, and for an hour it gives him superhuman strength, abilities or whatever. So it was a formula called Miracle, which grants him super strength and endurance, but for only 1 hour. So in order for him to keep that, it gives him the powers that he needs. Now, the creator of Sentry said that he actually had the Sentry was actually a pitch for Our Man to be not, he wouldn't be called a Sentry, but what would happen is they would reintroduce him, and the Miracle formula would give him all of these fantastical abilities, like the Sentry, superhuman strength, durability, flight, all that kind of stuff or whatever. But also give him that dark side, which is the void. So he pitched it to DC, but DC was like, no, it's not gonna work. Then he went to Marvel with the idea, it didn't work. And then his editor at DC was like, hey, just create an original character. And I'm sorry, Paul Jenkins. I'm sorry, Paul Jenkins is the one. So Paul Jenkins released the Sentry in the Marvel Knight series. And it was a story that told about a powerful superhero who had been forgotten by the rest of the Marvel universe, which is kind of crazy because Our Man in the JSA was forgotten about by the DC universe after I forgot, some convoluted thing that Jeff Johns did to explain the reason why the JSA was forgotten about by the DC universe or whatever. So actually the Our Man thing would have made so much sense, that he was the one who was able to survive this epic battle with the JSA, and then he took that formula, which would have gotten the world to kind of remember the JSA and him as well. I think that would have been a great idea. Lord knows the JSA could use a little bit more excitement, because they haven't really had any excitement since Jeff Johns the 2000s run. I don't know if it's just, I'm not just saying just Jeff Johns, it's just that I remember Jeff Johns actually working on the 2000s JSA run. If you guys haven't read the Modern Age of JSA, please read it. It also does the sequel to Kingdom Come. Oh my God, I'm telling you, the modern JSA run is amazing. Not the bullshit that we got now, but the 2000s all the way to 2011 run of the JSA, fantastic. Justice Society of America, like, DC got it about the Golden Age characters. Um, and it was originally, the Sentry was originally presented as an original character that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created, but he was long forgotten or whatever. And he recently talked at a Dragon Con panel about Marvel Sentry Identity Crisis, where the writer revealed that the Sentry was originally a pitch at DC Comics for the Hour Man. So Marvel Sentry was for Hour Man. It was originally pitched for Vertigo Hour Man, and I was thinking about superheroes dealing with addiction because it is a drug. Miracle is a drug, and it does have addictive qualities or whatever, but it does give the user powers for an hour. You get what I'm saying? And that was the crux of Hour Man, is that he can only, I think he can only take the formula once or twice a day, and within those hours, that's how he got his powers. But you can't really use it like that because you can overdose on it. um so if you guys don't know, in 1940s Adventure Comics issue 48, Kevin Fitch and Bernard Bradley created Tyler. That's the first Hour Man, right? And Tyler gained his powers after taking the miracle pill, and he became the costume hero, Hour Man. So Jenkins saw the character as a perfect way to explore issues of addiction and mental health issues, which is kind of crazy since Vertigo is part of the DC universe, and it did deal with darker topics of the DC universe that we really don't talk about, which I think that would have been fantastic for Hour Man, honestly. Um, Karen said that they weren't interested in doing superheroes at Vertigo at the time, which is crazy because they kind of did do superheroes, sort of, since those characters did appear in the DC universe, which is kind of funny. I'm like, I would have been like, Karen, really? Like, we literally have Swamp Thing and Constantine, and these characters have crossed over with some of the DC characters. Like, you can still have that. You can have this character branch between the Golden Age, Vertigo, what Vertigo is doing, and then the superhero world, because it is part of the DC universe. The Vertigo lines, most of the books were part of the DC universe. Like, okay. Um, Jenkins also explained that the writer decided to turn the character into a new original hero after years of pitching it both to Marvel and DC. It crossed the desk of Marvel Knights editor Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, which is kind of crazy because you would think that he pitched this idea to DC. DC said no. Then he tried to go to Marvel with the idea. Marvel said no. Then he went back to DC again to pitch the idea in the DC universe itself, and it was rejected. Finally, it came across the desk of Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, which was that Marvel Knights, which were supposed to be Marvel stories outside the continuity of the Marvel universe, but it was still in the Marvel universe. It's just like the Vertigo books; they technically are in the universe of the DC universe, but then they try to say it's not. But it's just like we already knew that they were, though. So it's kind of funny how it went around this loop before it got to Joe Quesada and them, and they were like, "Sure, let's go with it." Um, he called it "The Big Lie" by Christopher Lawrence, which appeared in Wizard's Guide to Comics, issue 116, gives further context to Jenkins' original pitch. He had these pills that made him into a superhero for 1 hour. Talk about the biggest rush in history. Jenkins said Hour Man would be great to write as an addict hero, which is kind of true. He's right, because in order for the Hour Man characters to work, they need Miracle. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need this pill that gives you this power for an hour, and then when it runs out, guess what? You dope on some more of the pill. You know what I mean? It kind of reminds me of when, I think, was it DC or Marvel? They had a villain who entire gimmick was cocaine. So in order for him to use his powers, he had to be high on cocaine. Like that. In order for his powers to work, he had to be high on cocaine. Like, nothing else worked. High on cocaine. And it's the same thing as like that indie comic book called Rise, where the superhero, he has all the powers of Superman, but in order for his powers to work, he has to fuck. So if he's not high on ecstasy, he can't use his powers, and his powers go out depending on how low his libido is. it is an interesting concept on a superhero who's doing the right thing but has to do drugs in order for it to work. Um, so it was a wild to think that Sentry started out as a pitch for an entirely different character at another company, but the final series still reflects Jenkins' original vision of a hero dealing with addiction. The Sentry alter ego Robbie Reynolds gained his powers from a special serum, which he keeps hidden away to protect the world from his dangerous powers. The scene of the now middle-aged Reynolds' attempt to hide his serum usage from his wife Lindy, given the series an added reality and depth, pushing the Sentry into the realms far outside of what typical Marvel superhero comic books we've seen. Even though it wasn't published by Vertigo, the first Sentry series definitely feels like the type of dark character studies imprint excel at, which is kind of crazy because even if they didn't use Our Man, the Sentry, it could have been interesting to actually see the Sentry in the DC universe. Like he could easily be a character you can put on a JSA, the Justice League International or Justice League Dark. Like you don't have to have him in the main Justice League team, but I would have loved to see him maybe be on the Outsiders, maybe be part of the JSA. Like it just would have made so much logical sense for the Sentry to be there, and it's kind of crazy that DC said hell no to that. And the Vertigo editors at the time, like, are you guys smoking the crack that God gives? This would have changed so much. Oh man, I could come up with so much of a concept right now too. Like my idea, my brain is just like, because of my history of the JSA, Our Man, the fact that we know that Sentry was originally supposed to be a reboot of Our Man, like the new Our Man serum would have gave him more power and stuff like that. That would have been so cool to do back in the day. Oh God, DC, why, Lord? Because now it's just like, damn, that could have been cool. Um, so I don't know. Even though it started off as a pitch for the DC Our Man, Marvel Century still handles the subject of addiction with Air Bloom. So yeah, that was it. That's basically it. So basically, um, the Sentry was supposed to be in the DC universe. Honestly, it started off as a pitch for Our Man. The entire story was supposed to be a DC study piece, a DC superhero study piece, which again would have made sense because the JSA, a lot of the characters did kind of fall into the realm of superhero, and it would have made sense because a lot of those characters did kind of start around World War II. It would just make sense that there would be some kind of accident or drugs or whatever that would enhance somebody to give them the fighting chance against the Axel power. Like, oh my God, that would have been so lovely. Like, don't get me wrong. It's cool that he's in Marvel, but I just feel like, oh, now that I know the original pitch was for Our Man, and you could have easily pushed Our Man into the realms of a little bit more of a stardom thing, and also kind of push the golden age of DC into a new realm where it's just like, wow, they were dealing with some stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that you could add to the golden age besides like LGBT bullshit. Yeah, yeah. Don't think I forgot about that shit, DC. That you added that bullshit in there instead of like doing something like this. You rejected this, but you decided, let's take one of our legendary characters and make them gay because we need representation. But you wouldn't talk about a tough subject like addiction, or the fact that Our Man was taking drugs in order to get his powers, which would have made so much sense. Oh God. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Tell me what you guys think. Do you guys think that Our Man reboot into a version of Sentry would have been better, or do you think the Sentry could have been an adversary for Our Man in the DC universe that he has to deal with? Or are you glad that he's with Marvel? Let me know what you guys think. Or do you think DC fumbled the ball with this one? Because I think DC and Vertigo fumbled the ball with that one. Like, you could have easily pushed them into the realms of you know, the Hellblazers, the what, the Dream Realm, or all that kind of stuff. Also connecting to JSA, also connecting to the DC universe. This character could have been a linchpin, if you ask me. That's just my personal opinion. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.